Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Callie, and as you all know, I am a big reader of series. So I figured I would make a video of all the series that are complete and that I plan on getting to in the near future. At the beginning of every month, I try and finish a series. It's usually what I start with. And typically, these series that I pick for the beginning of every month, I've at least read one of the books so that I can get that refresher and then jump right into its subsequent sequels. I've been doing this for about a year now, and it's a really good way for me to knock out all of the series that I just fall in love with. It helps me keep track of them and just power through them. So I have a pile of like the next series that I plan on tackling. For the most part, I picked anything that had three or more books, with the exception of the first book or two, and that's only because they're coming up really close in the next month or so for me to read. Um, so my May reread and series is Where Dreams Descend by Janella Angelis. This is a Phantom of the Opera meets Moulin Rouge and add magic. I really liked book one. It had those very dark Phantom of the Opera vibes that I love. I've never actually seen the play or the musical or the show or the movie Moulin Rouge, but I want to. But I really liked this one, so I'm interested. It's been a long time since I've read it because I think this came out in like 2019, I want to say. Oh no, this came out in 2020, but I read it in 2020, which was 3 years ago. So I have the sequel, which is When Night Breaks. So I'm excited to jump in and finish this duology. The next one that I have is The Gilded Wolves by Roshni Chachki. I read the first two books in this series, which is The Gilded Wolves and The Silvered Serpents. I read those two, and then I was waiting for The Bronze Beasts to come out. I really like this. It is a heist in the 1800s with magic. We follow a full cast. I actually liked this better than Six of Crows, which a lot of people compared it to Six of Crows when it was coming out, but I liked it better than that. So I'm excited to jump back into this world. I remember loving Layla and Sev. The whole cast was really fun. And I love their different antics. This one takes place in Paris. The second book takes place in Russia. I'm really intrigued to see where everything takes us in the third book and how everything will come together. Next is the only other duology, technically, that I have on this, and that is These Violent Delights by Chloe Gong. I say technically because it is These Violent Delights and then These Violet Ends. Violent Ends. However, she has this whole universe set in this area, so along with reading the duology, I have set up to read Foul Lady Fortune right after it as well in the same span, because Foul Lady Fortune is a spin-off kind of one of the characters from this book. But this is a Romeo and Juliet retelling in 1920 Shanghai. I really liked it. You could definitely tell it was a debut. But I have a lot of faith in Chloe Gong's writing. I love the story she's trying to tell, the spin off of Romeo and Juliet. Plus, they're both like children of rival mobs instead of rival families. I mean, they're kind of the same concept, but I really liked this. This is, I think, my Fairy Loot edition. Yeah, this is my Fairy Loot edition. I mainly loved the atmosphere. The 1920s Shanghai aspect was really cool and really well executed within the story. Up next, I have the Kingdom of the Wicked trilogy by Carrie Maniscalco. I read book one, and I've been waiting. It took me forever to get book two. By the time I got book two, book three was literally right around the corner, so I figured I'd just hold off, and I've just been keeping on holding off. It took forever for my book three to show up. So I finally have these on the docket soon. But this is following a girl whose sister goes missing, and then she accidentally makes a pact with the demon Wrath. They're this whole demon realm where they're the personifications of the seven deadly sins. I loved this. I know that this one is either hot or cold for a lot of people, but I adored this. Wrath and Amelia's tension was electric, and throughout that entire book it was like that. I liked the mystery. I didn't see who it was in the end. But I'm excited to jump back into this world now that it's finished. I've heard really good things about books 2 and 3. Plus, I've heard that this goes from YA to adult very, very quickly. So I'm excited to see Carrie Maniscalco jump into the adult realm. Next, I have Bloodleaf by Crystal Smith. Now, this was originally supposed to be a standalone, then it was a duology, then it was a trilogy. So I read book 1 a while ago. I liked the original covers better, but that's neither here nor there. But I liked it. I liked it a lot. I know this was one of our earlier book club picks, and Sarah and Brittany, this was kind of a miss for them, but I enjoyed it. So I finally got a copy of Greythorn, which is the second book, and then I will do a reread of Bloodleaf and then read Greythorn and decide if I do like it as much as I remember. Because I have been finding that as I reread some of these older books, is I don't like them as much the second time around. I don't know if it's just because I've become more critical of a reader, but this is a retelling of Goose Girl. So this princess essentially gets swapped out for a servant to die, and then someone takes her throne with her face, and she has to try and fight to get her life back. And I've seen this retelling done a couple of times. This is probably my favorite version of the retelling. So I'm interested to see, from what I remember on how this ended, I'm interested to see how she creates more to the story off of this one. Next, I have the Mirror Visitor series. This is a quartet, and these ones have actually been done for a while, though I've been waiting to read this because these are originally published in French. So I have to wait for the translated versions. I really like this. This is such a complex fantasy romance story. A little less on the romance, but it is a girl who is essentially lives on this eternal spring spire, and she is sold off to marry this lord of this dark political spire. So she has to leave everything she knows to go to this, and she's got really interesting powers. Her powers are she can, when she touches an object, she can see the history of it, and she can travel through mirrors, hence Mirror Visitor. And I'm really excited to see how this all ends. I have heard book 3 is a bit of meh, but I haven't heard anything about book 4. So I really liked books 1 and 2, and I'm excited to dive back into this world because it was really magical and whimsical, and I loved that about this. Plus, the characters were really fun. Our main character was that very shy, naive main character, and we have the grumpy. Essentially, he's like the Beast. His name's Wolf, if I remember correctly, and I'm excited to see where their story goes. Next, I have Fireborn by Rosaria Munda. This series just ended or just finished. I've read book 1, and I own book 2. This is essentially after this big revolution. The rebels have won, they've taken over, and they're trying to rebuild the society, which is a really cool angle to have on a series. And that was one of my top aspects of this book was we're post rebellion, we're in the rebuilding phase, which you never get to see in books. Typically rebellion wins and then the book ends. We have essentially prior to the rebellion only nobles could ride dragons and become dragon riders, which are like the sentries, but now it is a free-for-all. Anyone can be trained to ride dragons. We follow 2 people, one who is a girl who would have never been able to dragon ride. The other is a noble in hiding. He was a young child when the rebellion happened. His entire family was slaughtered, and he was able to escape and create this new identity. So he's trying to hide that identity because he kind of agrees with the rebellion. He's not trying to take it back or anything. He's just in hiding. So he knows that they'll kill him if they find out he survived. I really liked this. It was filled with dragons, dragon riding. It had a really good romance, had a really good plot, and I'm just really excited to jump right back into this because it was so unique, and I have yet to read another book that has a similar setup to this. Up next, I have There Will Come a Darkness by Katie Rose Poole. This is another heist-ish type, not really heist, but it has that big cast, multiple POV heist type feel to it. We're following several different characters who connect via this prophecy. And I think the way it has, yeah. So we have a prince exiled from his kingdom, a ruthless killer, a once faithful leader, a reckless gambler, and a dying girl. And they all end up hearing this prophecy and are kind of picked apart um, as a piece of each prophecy. And the story kind of goes on from there. And essentially, they're these random people and they make the bad choices. And they have to live with those bad choices and have the bad side of the prophecy come true. And it's really fascinating to have this group of people come together like this. I've read books one and two, um, which is There Will Come a Darkness and As the Shadow Rises. The last one is Into the Dying Light. So I remember the cliffhanger from book two. I read these a while ago. I think I read both of these right when book two dropped. And the cliffhanger to book two was wild. I remember being really mad because I think at that time we didn't even have a name or cover for book three. So I'm excited to finally get to A, re-experience the cliffhanger, and B, be able to jump right into book three and see the resolution. Up next, I have Sky Without Stars by Jessica Brody and Joanne Rendell. This is Les Mis in space. I read book one and I really liked book one. We're following our several characters. We're following our Jean Valjean, we're following our Eponine, and I believe we're also following our Javert, are the big three. It's been so long since I've read this book. But I remember really liking it. It had really good sci-fi. It was, I don't want to say true to the Les Mis story, but it had that skeleton of the story weaving through the entire thing. And I vaguely remember how it ended. And I'm really intrigued. These books got bigger and bigger as they came out, but each of the titles is a play on one of the songs from Les Mis, which I absolutely adore. It's my favorite musical. I'm curious as to just what more can we get from this story. It was such a fascinating take, and I loved the creativity and the ingenuity that was put into this story. Next, I have The Prison Healer by Lynette Noni. I'm currently reading Lynette Noni's older series, which is the Madoran Chronicles. But I actually found her through The Prison Healer, which was, I believe I have the Fairy Loot editions. I have the Fairy Loot editions, and then these are my normal editions. Um, because I love this book so much. This book took me by such surprise. I read books one and two immediately when they came out. They were both 5 stars, and I rarely give a second book 5 stars. This essentially follows a young girl who has been in prison since she was like 7. And because this prison has no rules, no laws, and a the country in charge has caught their biggest rebel, but she is so injured she's unconscious. Kiva, our main character, is the prison healer and is tasked with healing her so that she can be tortured and answer questions. But she they also want to kill the traitor or rebel leader by a lot of just kind of missteps. Kiva has to do these trials instead of her patient, and Kiva has no magic. She is literally just this prison healer girl. But there's a new prisoner who kind of helps her along with his hidden magic. And it's just, I adored everything. The prison setting was really fascinating because we have that throughout the entire book. I love a good trials setup. They are always really fun and always really unique, even though almost all the time the trials have to do with the elements. There's a different trial for each element. And what I also loved about this is this book has a lot to do with these like ciphers that Kiva writes. And it's fascinating. I remember getting to the end of this book and throwing it, not because of a cliffhanger, but because of the twist. There's a twist on the literal last line, and it threw me for a loop. I was not mentally prepared for it, and book two did not disappoint. So I'm really excited to finally get to the finale of this series. The last one that I have is actually a series that just came out with its final book like a month or two ago, and that is The Kinder Poison by Natalie May. This is an Arabian inspired fantasy story where a girl with no magic ends up getting picked to be in these trials for the throne. And she ends up befriending both princes who are also in the trials naturally. And she just kind of bumbles her way around. It's kind of the best way to describe it, but it's really fun And the trials are really interesting. She's like thrown into this desert. It's like this race. She could talk to animals, is what it was. So it was like, it seems so unhelpful in this kind of trial, but it ends up coming in handy a lot. And I read books 1 and 2, The Kindest Poison and The Cruelest Mercy. And then The Sweetest Betrayal is the third one. So I'm really, really pumped to finally see what happens in this book because, oh, so many fascinating aspects of it. And the banter is top tier. It's actually, I don't want to say love triangle, but kind of a love triangle. I always hesitate to say love triangle because there's two love interests, but they don't feel unbalanced, I guess is the best way to put it. But I really, really liked it. So those are just a majority of the series that I have, and these are only the complete ones. I have a ton of series that I'm currently working on that's not complete. I have a ton of series that I just have older series that I just haven't started, that I have the whole thing of. So I'll just be working my way. And then I just have a ton of unfinished series that I really want to be finished, like Children of Blood and Bone, Once Upon a Broken Heart. I also have a ton of duologies. I tried to keep duologies to a minimum here just because I do have a lot of them. Maybe I'll do a separate video of just duologies that I want to finish. But again, not all of them are completed. So that raises some issues. But I love series. They hold a special place in my heart. I don't love the waiting, but that anticipation does ramp up. Their majority of what I pre-order is sequels and finales to series. But yeah, that's gonna be it for today's video. Please like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. We post videos every Wednesday and Friday with the occasional Sunday, and I will see you guys in our next video. Bye!